totally different than.
Are you guys ready? We got everybody? Yep, okay. All right, I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. The first item we have is a request for council action. We have several for finance. We have 2160 budget amendments, 2161 state bid purchase of a Dodge Durango for the building department, 2162 expenditure over 15,000 for job creation grant friction products, 2163 expenditure over 15,000 job creation grant progressive Medina LLC, 2164 grant application Ohio EPA electric vehicle charging stations, 2165 state bid purchase 2 police cruisers from Lebanon Ford, 2166 trade-in 2 police vehicles to Lebanon Ford, 2167 2020 city auction, 2168 interurban building improvement agreement Medina Community Design, 2169 revocable use permit Medina Brew Company wall sign, 2170 discussion of MCRC full-time 32-hour work week, 2171 agreement Spring Road Cemetery drainage improvement, 2172 bids West Liberty storm sewer improvement parking deck detention, 2173 LPA project agreement with ODOT West Smith Phase 4, and 2174 West Smith Road Phase 4 design services agreement. The next item we have is budget amendments 2160. We have current year carry forward reductions from the 624 budget hearing. Keith? Yep. Where's your mic? You have a mic, okay. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Just so everybody knows, the carry forward reductions are mainly due to next year's budgeting. We're cutting the budgets by 10% across the board, just to prepare for what we believe the inevitable. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does, we're ready for it. Just reductions in income tax collections. Next one is accept check from Cleveland Area Mountain Bike Association.
Pass through.
$2,700. Anybody have any questions? No, wait, is that right?
2,000.
2,000, I'm sorry. Too much.
Move
2,000.
to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is purchase of a Dodge Durango SUV for the building department. Let me get there. Mr. Gladish?
Replace a 2010 Ford Escape. The Dodge Durango was the best price. It's about $5,000 less than the equivalent Ford Explorer.
And you got the vehicle vid. This was in your budget. What else can they ask you about it? I think that's anybody have any questions?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rose?
Mr. Gladish, you're going from a Ford Escape to the equivalent of a Ford Explorer. Why are we going to a larger vehicle?
Last vehicle, we switched to a Dodge Durango too, because we're multiple certified, Tom and I. We need the larger vehicles. The Ford Escape is a small vehicle. We need to carry really 2 to 3 times the amount of tools and books that
Okay,
we normally
all right.
would take. So,
Thank you.
larger.
Okay, other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2162 expenditure of 15,000 for a job creation grant friction project products. Mrs. Marshall?
I'll take that, Mr.
Oh,
President.
Jonathan?
So as you said, this is a job creation grant. This is a request to authorize the grant payment to Friction Products, otherwise known as Carlisle Brake and Friction, for tax year 2019 in the amount of $18,750.06. This grant is a result of their 150,000 square foot expansion for enhanced steel processing and warehousing. They committed to create 70 new jobs, full-time jobs, and a minimum of $3 million in payroll. They have exceeded that goal by creating 105 full-time jobs and $6.6 million in payroll. This is, since it is under $25,000, it's just for finance review and approval or review. So would just ask that it be approved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Just to be clear, it's just finance, so there's no emergency clause required.
You're correct. 2163 expenditure of 15,000 job creation grant progressive Medina LLC. Jonathan?
Yes, thank you. This is to authorize a job creation grant payment to Progressive Medina LLC for tax year 2019 in the amount of $15,443. This company relocated their business to the city of Medina and constructed a 70-bed skilled nursing facility at 699 East Smith Road. They committed to creating 55 new full-time jobs and a minimum of $2.8 million in payroll. They have met their goals, and the information has been verified by Rita. Thank you.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2164 grant application, Ohio EPA electric vehicle charging stations. Patrick?
Thank you. As council knows all along, we would plan on installing electric vehicle charging stations in the new parking deck. During construction, we have provided the necessary electrical service, and we have installed the conduit necessary from our control room out to where the charging stations will be. We had planned all along on applying for Ohio EPA grant monies provided by their Volkswagen settlement. Originally, OEPA was going to release these grants last year. They were delayed. They finally released them in July. Grant application is due September 30th. We would like to ask for the emergency clause because when this passes at the next council meeting, which is September 14th, it'll be less than 30 days until they're due.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President?
Mr. Rose?
Thank you. Patrick, this, in the agreement, 4.2, level electric charging equipment requirements. All chargers must be networked. What's the purpose of having the chargers networked? Is it strictly for using the charge cards or what?
I assume so. I'm not going to, I don't really know. I can find that answer out for you. But I know we will be required as part of this, I think you saw, to enter into an agreement with some sort of service for billing, similar to what we do at the airport.
Okay, all right, and then as far as the, and then in the next section, clear instructions, they want to know, that, like, for customer support, who's responsible for having the customer support for those devices?
Yeah, again, I would assume similar to the airport, where we have a firm that processes the credit card statements, and they take care of really everything. We pay for that service.
Okay,
But
what about the device itself?
the device itself, we do have a ongoing maintenance agreement with the fuel provider.
But for these chargers here, who's responsible for the device itself to make sure that it stays in proper working order?
I assume that's going to be the city. I
Okay.
can look further into that and let you know before the next meeting.
All right, okay. And they want semi-annual reports. Is that going to come out automatically from the report, the device, or?
Yes, like we get our monthly report, maybe Keith can explain, I think it's monthly or if not quarterly, regarding fuel usage out at the airport. This would be similar to that.
Okay, is that? Okay, that's what we expect, okay. All right. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2165, purchase 2 Ford Explorer Interceptors for the police department. Chief?
Thank you. This request is for 2 Ford Explorer police vehicles. They'll be purchased from Lebanon Ford. This is state bid and it's budgeted.
Are these similar to what we already have, or are they upgraded version and? No,
Same thing.
same thing. Okay, questions?
Move to approve.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Can we get more selling those on auction?
I'm sorry, what's
Can we
that?
get more than the 8,000, 4,000 apiece?
At
to
our
sell?
city auction?
Right.
No, typically we get far less than that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Really? Okay, all right.
okay,
Great.
any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2166, traded in 2 police vehicles to Lebanon Ford. Chief?
Thank you. This is the trade for 2 2015 all-wheel drive Explorers that both have well over 100,000 miles on them. We'll be trading those in for credit on the new ones.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2167, the 2020 city auction. Nino?
Thank you, Mr. President. So speaking of city auction, this is our annual request for authorization to conduct the city auction. A date has not been set. We will provide the list of final items for the council to review prior to the next council meeting. We will forward that to Council Clerk Kathy Patton. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2168, interurban building improvement agreement with Medina CDC. Mr. Mendel?
Yes, thank you. This is a proposal that had come to me through the Medina Community Design Committee. This is the interurban building on South Court Street. It's on city property. It is city property itself, on city land. The CDC, along with Main Street Medina, are using grant dollars through Main Street Medina to help do a repaint and rehabilitation job work to the building. It did go to Historic Preservation Board for the proposed repainting scheme, which was approved by them on August 13th. But in consultation here within the city administration, since it's work being done by a private entity and a private contractor coordinating the execution and completion of this project on city property, a improvement agreement between the city of Medina and Medina Community Design Committee should be executed. So that's I have an example of the HPB review of the repainting request, and then a draft improvement agreement for the example that's actually on tonight, the Spring Grove Cemetery project. Be the similar type of agreement format. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2169, a revocable use permit to Medina Brew Company for a sign. Jonathan, is this you?
Yes, thank you. This is the result of a sign package request for all of the Farmers Exchange down on South Court Street, 320 South Court Street. Last year, as it was going through rehabilitation and construction and occupancy, they had the property owner had come to the city of Medina with a request for various sign package throughout the whole site, and part of it was 3 projecting signs off of the west facade of the building facing Court Street. One sign, as part of kind of consistent with a projecting sign that used to hang from this same spot in past decades, was a sign on the first floor portion extending over the public right-of-way of South Court Street. Current code did not permit that, so they had to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals actually for all 3 projecting signs, and the Board of Zoning Appeals approved a kind of 2 options. You can put all 3 of those signs above the first floor portion of the west facade of the building, which would be over private property, or you can do one where one of them's hanging over the South Court Street public right-of-way. As part of that, there was a condition of approval if you use the one where one sign is, if you use the approval that's one sign over the public right-of-way, you'd have to get a revocable use permit through the city council. So that's a condition of the BZA approval. And that's where we're at tonight.
Okay, questions? Just as an update, when we update our permits and everything, let's just update the notary clauses too, because I know that they're old notary clauses. The notary requirements have changed.
Okay, yeah, that's just I just did that as a draft.
Okay.
It would still obviously need to go through
Right.
Law Director Huber's review and approval.
Questions about the signage?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2170, discussion of the MCRC full-time 32-hour work week. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this discussion item only. It's in regards to the rec center. The memberships aren't back to where we hope they would be by now since we opened June 1st. In fact, the members using the facility is still about 49.5%. We have not opened it up to non-members, day passes or anything. And we're just really feeling the impact on it. It's predicted, Keith actually gave us some numbers when this all started and we opened back up, of probably using at least $500,000 by the end of the year just to carry forward to cover the lost revenues. And that's a good number, if not higher. So ideally, so far the part-timers are really the only people that have taken, bared the weight of all this. We've cut a bunch of positions. They have not returned yet. Marketing coordinator, senior coordinator, rental coordinator, all the building monitors. The full-time staff is opening and closing the building and running it there the whole time that the rec's open. Our hours are still cut. It's just a big impact. So ideally, I think that the full-time staff should also help with the expenses if it's possible. And I said it's discussion item only, so it'd be up to council to decide. The numbers-wise of what you have in front of you are a little skewed because there's not unemployment off of that. If the staff chose to try to get the 8 hours of unemployment for each week and claim that, it would be about a $54,000 savings for 2021. I, of course, would not be trying to collect unemployment for that 8 hours. I know that impact is important to save even $54,000. So I would not suggest it for this year, but I wanted to talk about it now. If we could get possibly an ordinance in place that would start December 19th for the pay period starting January. And then if things pick up, great, we'll revoke it or, remove the ordinance or ask to, I don't know what you call it, to have it taken off. But ideally, that's what I'd like to see in place. And if it's something we can do, we can talk about that. Just to give you an idea, I get the idea. I talk with Strongsville director a lot, the Strongsville Rec Center. Their city, the whole city, aside from the collective bargaining agreements, all went to 32-hour work weeks for the last 3 months because they knew their income tax was going to be a lot less, especially with the mall closed and things like that. So, and trying to think of what else. They were all furloughed for that time period. Their rec center, out of 22 full-time staff, have still only brought back 10 full-time staff. And out of 180 employees, they've only brought back 89 of the part-time staff. So that's my suggestion, just something to talk about for now. It would require a change to the salaries and benefits code. Right now it says a 40-hour work week. It would have to change to have something to say something about the rec center itself and being a 32-hour work week for full-time staff. I would like myself included in that. So however it works out, if I know it's an hourly rate on my pay stub, so if they can reduce that by 8 hours, even though I'm salary, I would prefer that too. I'd want to be included in the whole furlough or whatever we're going to call it.
Yeah, that'll be a separate pay grade change, I guess, for you to modify that. But anybody have any thoughts or discussion on that?
Has this been, Mike, have you talked about this with your staff, you said?
Yes, it of course doesn't go over well. Overall, we're going to try some things in the next couple months. We're looking for a sale in September. We'll run a sale every month if we have to, up to the end of the year, to see if we can draw people back. If it works, great. I'm looking for at least a 75% increase return on revenues compared to last year. So we're looking at September. I'd like to see 75% of those revenues from last year's September be back for September this year and follow on through. And that would at least help us not use as much carry forward and maybe not have to require us to go to a 32-hour to save that $54,000 plus.
So this would, and I don't mean to take up time, but the 32-hour work week change would be the worst case scenario if at the end of the year we're seeing the numbers steadily stay at that lower rate or not picking up at all. That's an option that you just want to discuss in case you have to implement something like that.
Right. Worst case, though, to lose a full-time position. And that's what I told the staff. If you can cut 8 hours out of your work week to save a full-time position, isn't it worth it? And, some were yes and some were no. And so it really just, it's a tough situation all the way around.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Mike, thank you for offering this as a suggestion. Having grown up in the steel industry, things like that were like that for me. I know it is tough. It is extremely difficult, especially when your home budget is like this and you have to take a cut. So, if you can do it without too much harm, good luck with it. I appreciate that. But is there any, and this is a general question for the mayor or Keith, is there any ramifications for the rest of the city, for other city employees? Is this going to be non-bargain for people?
Mayor?
Well, the unions were bound by collective bargaining agreements, so it would not even be a possibility for consideration. It would not set a precedent, in my opinion. Mr. Huber can correct me if I'm wrong, because the rec center is an enterprise fund, whereas most of the other departments are not.
Okay.
But if you have other questions, I'll answer them first. If not, I'd just like to offer a couple other things.
Okay. No, that was, okay, it's not going to set a precedent. Thank you. Unless Mr. Huber says something differently. Okay. All right. Thank you.
The other thing I would ask the council to keep in mind, I appreciate what Mike's doing here, but we also have to appreciate that first of all, we're short one full-time position that we haven't filled since it vacated. So now you have the remaining full-timers picking up that full-time and all the part-timers that have not come back, save for the lifeguards that we're having a hard time and trying to get as many hours out of them as we can. So in essence, what I'm telling you is we're stretching these people pretty thin, and then now going to ask them to do it at 32 hours pay a week versus 40. I also understand and appreciate the financial implications, but I've asked Mike and asked him to direct the staff to look at any possible means, be it day passes, be it special events, be it incentives for memberships, do everything in our possible power to try to get the revenue back rebounded so that we don't have to take this action. And Jim, you have much more HR experience than any of us probably in this room. So if you had opinions as to other things we may be able to try, I'd respectfully ask for that.
Yeah. And I sitting here trying to think of different options. I'm with you, Mayor. I would rather not put the staff in that position after all they've done to keep things afloat here. So I would like to try to see if there's other ideas we can look at.
And Mr. President, one more thing, if I may. Mike, and I know you and your staff it's hard to get people to feel comfortable to come back, but maybe with the local media that's watching this meeting could maybe emphasize that the rec center, and I know your staff is, just like every other part of the city, is doing everything they can to make sure everything's sanitized, and the public is really safe for them to come back with the social distancing and wearing the masks and so forth. Maybe the media can help emphasize to get some of the members that were hesitant about rejoining to know that it is relatively safe. And I know, again, like Jim mentioned and the mayor mentioned, maybe some promotions in the near future that can help entice the public to start attending again. But I appreciate all the hard work you're doing, and I agree with the mayor and Jim. I sure hope it doesn't come to this reduction, because they are really working extra hard. Thank you.
Mike, I guess the question I have is this a requirement that it absolutely has to be 8-hour reduction, or are you saying you would make a judgment call, maybe do 4 hours to start out with, see if you can raise revenue, and maybe give a half a day off a week, or do you have to go 1 day a week off?
So the idea behind it is the 32 hours is that's exactly what the city of Strongsville did. And it seemed to work for them because they're going to start back after 3 months. They feel like their funds have come back enough with the income tax and everything that the finance department cleared them to go back to 40 starting next week. So they went 3 months and is lucky for them. But Strongsville is not an enterprise fund rec center. They are highly funded, subsidized through the city through income tax. So the other part too with the 32 hours, the idea is, and I know the mayor mentioned it about the staff working harder, but actually with the building having half the people in it, it's less for people to do. Even the full-time staff has less to do because there's one front desk person, and there's half the people in there or less. It's really less for each person. The equipment's used less than half. I mean, everything you go through for each person is half. There's no swim lessons, so the aquatics manager's, less, he could cut hours. So the idea of the 32 hours is that they could handle it. We could handle it, but.
Well, I guess the question that I'm getting at is, you made the difference. Strongsville is not like us.
Right.
We have a carrier forward, they don't. We're able to use it. I guess the question I'm having, going back with the mayor's comment, is it wise for us to look at if you could try to raise revenue through other programs, maybe only to cut a half a day to see if you could balance the cost revenue dichotomy and using the carry forward funds to lessen the stress and give them money, because of course if they earn that pay they're going to spend it most likely, and that's a good thing for us.
Right.
So I don't know if there's a way we could do a sliding scale. Would that be acceptable, or are you just suggesting we do the 8 hours period?
No, anything, if council decided we wanted to try 4, that's fine. Ideally, I want the revenues to pick back up, and I don't want to have to do any of this. Even Strongsville had started their day pass back last week. They've had 10 more people, because people just don't want to come back, and you can't force that. That's not something.
Well, you hit it on the head. You have your people, you say they don't have enough to do, so the question is, why couldn't we bring all those things back?
You mean like day pass everything else?
Yeah. If we don't have the people there and we have the people on staff to cover, but there's not enough for them to do, why wouldn't we try to have more people if we do it in a safe way?
So it's the restrictions. So we're only allowed to have up to 125 people in the building. That hasn't changed. The restrictions for the pool, we're allowed to have 25 in a leisure pool. That hasn't changed. Until those restrictions are lifted, we may not see people coming
Oh, I get
back.
it, but how many people do you think are there now, I guess, did you mention
We've
that?
had a total of 78 at one time in the building. So, we have a little leeway, and that's why we were thinking about bringing back day passes. But without basketball, being able to use the basketball courts, which is a main day pass user, and even, track use, tracks at half the size it was. There's different things that are affected, and people just aren't ready to come back. The lockers are still closed. The showers are still closed. There's things that people want to use and can't. Saunas still off. The 2 saunas are closed. The whirlpool's closed. The current channel's closed. These are all things people really like to use.
Okay.
So until those restrictions are lifted, it's costly to even run those.
Sure. Any other questions?
Mr. President,
Mr. Simpson?
one more thing and I'm done, Mike. I really appreciate what you and your staff did this last week for the Friends of Memorial Pool and Park. The outing that you had, I think it was well attended, and your staff was just phenomenal. I know Deborah Halleck's here, through Deborah and the Friends of Memorial Park and Pool and the breakfast Kiwanis it was just a real enjoyable time, and I think it was well attended. I don't know what the numbers were, but
It was a great event. We really appreciate all the donors, because it really made the whole summer. I believe without the pool, this summer wouldn't have been half as fun as it was for all the kids that got to use it and attend it.
but hats off to you and your staff.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Rose?
Thank you, Mr. President. One more question, Mike. With regard to the outdoor pool, when that closes, do you think that's going to positively impact the rec center?
I'm sorry, when you close
When the outdoor pool closes?
you think more people are going to come to the rec center?
That's my question. Do you think?
No, I don't
You don't
see,
think
because
so?
we're still required as a member to join, and we're going to try the day passes here soon, probably at about the middle of September. And we'll just see, if it does draw people back, but I can't imagine it being a large number. Our average use of the outdoor pool was 42 visitors. So, and some of those
Small percentage.
might already be members at the rec center. So,
Okay, all right, thank you.
Keith?
Just so everybody understands, this fund is by far the hardest hit by this COVID crisis of all the funds that we operate. And if you think about our operations, in the other enterprise funds, we sell water, which people have to have. We pick up trash, which people have to have. This is a rec center. It's discretionary. So even if it weren't for the memberships that got extended, anybody who's laid off, this is something that's, first on the chopping block for their personal budget. On top of that, we were closed for a long time, and during that time, we just extended those memberships. So normally, and Mike was talking about the percentage returning, and this is what we keep an eye on. Normally, you just look at 12 months ago. So you look at what you sold in July of 2020 in memberships, you compare it to July of 2019, and you know if you're losing, gaining, et cetera. Now we have to have this adjustment because we were closed for a while and we extended those memberships. But still, I mean, you can look at that and track it. That is, because obviously there's not support for this on council now, but so that we know going forward, that's the number we're going to have to track, because we're going to have to see, okay, when we close August, those memberships that came up in August are equivalent to the ones we sold last, and it's like 2 months prior, so now, so it'd be like June. Okay, what did we sell compared to June? And you can't look at it 1 month at a time, but I mean, you can look at it over time and say, hey, we're selling, you know, whatever that number is as we come out of this crisis. Are we selling 75%? Are we selling 90%? You know, are we back to 100? That's the key number to look at going forward, because the bulk of the revenue in this fund comes from those membership sales. And if those are down, not just as a one-time thing, I mean, that we can absorb and carry forward without a problem. The question is, are those down as a one-time thing, or is that a permanent thing as people are coming up for their renewal and saying, you know, for whatever reason, maybe they have financial issues because they got laid off, or maybe they just say, hey, it's not worth it with all this stuff being closed, whatever. We need to look at that number going forward and see where we are. And that's how we're going to have to track this, you know, 6-8 months from now, seeing how we're doing.
Okay. Mayor?
Not to belabor it, but just maybe as a refresher. So the COVID closed us March, April, and I think the better part of May, because the rec center was one of the last things that was permitted to come back. So of course we wait till the nicest months of the year to open the rec center back up, and we're not getting a lot of people attending. So I guess my hope and prayer is that as we get into the fall and it starts to rain, and I don't want to say the word, but the frozen rain, that could have an impact on people, because they still want to exercise, and if you can't do it outside, hopefully that will help us as well. At least I'm an optimist. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're in northern Ohio, so we kind of know what's going to happen. So think about that. Let's think about what we want to get together in the next few months to set this up, I guess, for the beginning of next year. Keeping in mind, we'll get better numbers as time goes on, and we'll be able to see if there's any increase in the fall and how the revenue looks, how the carry forward looks, because once it's out of money, it's out of money. So we just can't print money, I guess. We're not there yet, but we'll have to figure out how to handle that. All right, Mike, thanks for the information. 2171 Spring Road Cemetery Drainage Improvement Agreement. Mr. Worley?
Thank you, Mr. President. This request before you today is basically from the Friends of the Cemetery. Back in May of 2019, the Friends of the Cemetery contracted with Cunningham and Associates to do a storm sewer and drainage analysis at Spring Grove. Cunningham at that time took a look at all of the entire cemetery, all 33 acres, and surveyed the drainage system, identified a number of problems, 19 to be exact. Since May of 2019, the city has worked to correct a number of these issues, but there were a few that are more involved than what we're capable of doing in-house. So the Friends of the Cemetery reached back out to Cunningham Associates to come up with construction drawings and an engineer's estimate to identify and repair 2 sections at Spring Grove right adjacent to East Washington Street. The City Parks Department as well as the Engineering Department has reviewed these drawings, worked with Cunningham and Associates to correct some issues as well as identify what the city was going to help with collaboratively on the project. As such, Mr. Huber and the lawyer for the Friends of the Cemetery have worked together to draft a drainage agreement for this particular project. Mr. Huber's had the opportunity to review this, and I believe it was finalized as of today. So we're looking to enter into agreement with the Friends of the Cemetery for another project at Spring Grove. The Friends of the Cemetery is planning on selecting their contractor, paying for the work, and then at the completion of the project, would like the city to accept the project as a gift, very similar to what we did with the Amos Mears Memorial Building. Deborah Halleck is a member of the Friends of the Cemetery, and I do want to thank them for their patience and contribution to another project at Spring Grove.
This this needs to be passed subject to my approval. There's still an issue that Friends of the Cemetery asked to be added to our insurance company as an additional insured. We checked with our insurance representative. They advised that we should deny that request. So I contacted Ms. Demlo, let her know, and she was going to take it back to the board to discuss it. So that's not quite nailed down yet.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Move to approve, subject to law director's final approval.
Second?
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 2172 West Liberty Storm Sewer City Hall Parking Deck Detention. Mr. Patton.
Thank you. As you know, we've been struggling with this for a while. We need to provide detention for our new parking deck and for the future development that's going to go adjacent to Sully's on West Liberty. We looked at several different options. Ultimately asked CPS to give us a proposal to do one of these options. We found their price to be exorbitant. So they issued us a credit to non-perform this. This before you is our request to advertise and bid this project. It's $81,625 to extend this West Liberty Street storm sewer, and then the installation of the detention system and the necessary storm sewer is $75,000.
Thank you. Any questions? Just a little update. Why we're doing it this way is because I think on the west side of the building, correct, we can't put it there because of the width of the easement.
Yeah, we looked at that. It would be a lot less expensive to run it along the west edge of the property adjacent to the federal building. Unfortunately, because of the depth of this, we would really need at least the minimum 25-foot width, and doing that severely encroached upon the buildable area for the future development. So the thought was just kind of bite the bullet. This will go under the future driveway for the parking deck and will not affect that buildable area for that development.
Right, because if we recall, the buildable area, if we take that much away, it's going to be a multiple story building, and you're taking that much revenue away, or revenue generation ability. And I guess it would be real estate taxes associated with the construction of that building, so it didn't really make a lot of sense. So this is a far better solution, and the cost initially may be high, but over the term of years, it's quite low. So. Any other questions? Mayor?
One other thing is it's reimbursable then because it's a infrastructure improvement, both for the parking deck and the project. So the money from the TIF can pay for the infrastructure improvement, which is another advantage. But if you think about that 25 feet times 140, I believe, deep, you take that number, it's too late for me to do the math tonight, times 4 floors, it's about 10,000 square feet we would be losing in a building, and the property tax value of that. So those were the things we were trying to balance and came to this conclusion.
Yep.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2173 LPA project agreement with ODOT West Smith Road Phase 4. Patrick?
Thank you. As council knows, we did receive a grant in the amount of $2,046,590. That's a federal grant awarded by NOACA, and it's managed by ODOT. When that's the case, for us to take control of the grant, take control of the project, we do have to come to an LPA agreement with ODOT. This agreement allows us to bid and award the project with our own forces. This avoids having to pay ODOT to do that. We've done this several times in the past. We did it on North Huntington Street Phase 1. We've done on West Smith Road before, and Guilford Boulevard Phase 3. So we're very familiar with it. It saves us money and makes it a lot less hassle when we can control it locally.
And the city shares $1.9 million out of the 108 account?
That's correct, yep.
Mayor?
The only other thing I'd offer for council is if you think about this now from Court Street to the fairgrounds or Standard Welding, where we left off the last time, in the last decade, we will have replaced everything on West Smith Road from end to end, significantly improved it, significantly helped out our industry, and even added an extra turn lane out at Owens Corning. So it's quite an accomplishment. It's taken us a while. Obviously, each of these projects is very expensive, but to get these federal dollars in that amount to get this project, and it's not until about 2022, because it takes a while to go through all these processes, but in the end, the wait will be worth it. So we appreciate council's support.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And finally, we have 2174 West Smith Road Phase 4 Design Services. Patrick?
Thank you. With the project this size, and because it's got federal funds attached to it, the design engineer has to be pre-qualified through ODOT. In order for us to select a design engineer or consultant, we are required to go through a qualification-based selection process. We did go through that process. We advertised, I believe, in May. We received 13 proposals or letters of interest from different design teams. We did, and I want to mention Councilman Heffinger and my assistant Fred Himmelreich were part of the review committee, which was a lot of work going through those 13 proposals. We narrowed them to 3. Those 3 we've invited to an interview in July, and based on that, we are recommending that American Structure Point from Cleveland be awarded the contract for the design services for this in the amount of $481,632.
Thank you. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, that was the last item on the agenda for finance. Is anything else before we go into executive session? Okay,
Where are we going for executive session?
imminent litigation.
No, where are we going?
Oh, where?
Are we staying up here?
We would
Everybody
probably go to the
leave.
mayor's office, I guess, because, is the multipurpose room open? Is it open? Yeah, it is, okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion at 6:12 PM that we go into executive session for conferences with the law director of the city concerning disputes involving the city that are subject to pending or imminent court action.
Second?
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Hazeltine,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Heffinger,
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
We'll be recessing into executive session to discuss the imminent litigation. We will be adjourning from executive session, taking no action on the item discussed in executive session, and then we'll be coming back to adjourn from the finance meeting.
Mr. Coyne, I just want to add, who will be joining us, Mayor? Just the law director then? Yep, okay.
And I guess we'll just go to the multi-purpose room is the easiest? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
Then go to the multi-purpose room.
bigger.
All right, we're in recess.
Where you at?
Okay, we're gonna reconvene from recess.
Okay.
And we'll adjourn.
Yeah.
Okay, we're out of the executive session, and I'd have a motion to adjourn finance.
Mr. Coyne, just for the record, I wanted to note that we came out of executive session at 6:44,
Thank you. We came out of executive session at 6:44.
and now I'll make a motion to adjourn Finance Committee.
Second?
All in favor of adjourning finance?
Aye.
All opposed? Finance is adjourned.